When it comes to Canadian steel, more than 90% of exports go to the U.S. Ontario is the hub.
We must diversify our trade relationships. And above all, we must rely more on Canadian steel for Canadian projects.
It all started with one signature, and everything changed. In the summer of 2025, a new steel tariff from Washington and a fast, calculated response from Ottawa sent shockwaves through North America's industrial heart. The once reliable U.S.-Canada supply chain began to crack. As U.S. factories struggle with soaring input costs, Canada's assembly lines are buzzing, working round the clock. And now Ford, an icon of American industry, is pouring billions into Canadian soil. Jobs are moving. Investments are shifting, and the balance of power in North America's manufacturing game may be quietly tilting north. But is this just a temporary reaction, or the beginning of a full-blown industrial shift? And what does it mean for workers on both sides of the border? Let's break it down in today's video. Note, this video is an independent analysis based on public sources. It does not represent any organization or political stance. We encourage you to think critically and share your thoughts in the comments. June 4th, 2025 could go down as a turning point. That day, President Trump doubled tariffs on Canadian steel from 25% to 50%. The move stunned economists and business leaders alike. Using Section 232 of the U.S. Trade Expansion Act of 1962, the White House cited national security to justify the change, claiming it would protect American steelmakers from a flood of cheap imports. But many are now asking, can you protect one industry without hurting others? Canada felt the blow immediately. Its steel exports became less competitive overnight. The Canadian Steel Producers Association warned that plants could cut capacity or shut down entirely, risking thousands of jobs. Ottawa didn't wait. It moved fast. New export controls. Fresh import duties. Domestic steel prioritized. The message was clear. Defend Canada's industry at all costs. And that was just the beginning. Tensions between the two allies quietly simmered. Ontario slapped electricity surcharges on power exports to the U.S., a move that sparked anger in the American Midwest. Meanwhile, Canadian steel stayed home. U.S. automakers, already reeling from post-pandemic disruptions, faced new hurdles. By August, Canada tightened the screws. Quotas on steel from non-free trade countries were cut in half. Any extra imports? Hit with a 50% tariff. Even U.S. steel faced stricter limits. And Canada didn't stop there. High-value steel products, hot-rolled, cold-rolled, and specialty grades used in cars and construction were quietly redirected to Canadian buyers. The U.S. wasn't banned, but it wasn't being prioritized either. Then came another bold move, a blanket 25% tariff on steel from Asia, no matter how it entered Canada, even through FTA partners like the U.S. The goal? Stop cheap foreign steel from slipping through the cracks. Behind the scenes, Ottawa rolled out full support for its domestic producers. Massive infrastructure contracts began favoring Canadian steel. Tax breaks, low-interest loans, watchdog task forces. It all signaled a national effort to revive and defend local manufacturing. For many older Canadians, the steel mills along Lake Ontario aren't just factories, they're symbols. Symbols of pride, strength, identity, and now, perhaps, a comeback. The bigger question remains, is this the start of a new industrial era for Canada? Will the U.S. respond with more tariffs or rethink its strategy? One thing is clear. What started as a trade policy has now become a test of resilience, loyalty, and economic survival. Something big is happening up north, something even Ford couldn't ignore. As 2025 kicked off with growing trade tensions between the U.S. and key partners, Ford Motor Company found itself at a crossroads. With tariffs shifting fast and supply chains under threat, the company needed a bold move, and they made it. In March, the U.S. slapped a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum. It looked like a push to protect local industries, but when longtime allies like Canada were hit too, alarms went off. Things escalated when Ontario added a power export surcharge, risking the tariff soaring to 50%. Ottawa quickly made concessions, but by June, the tariff hike became law. That's when the auto industry started shaking. A new 25% tariff on Canadian vehicles and parts loomed. And for Ford, this was serious. Rather than risk collapse in its production flow, Ford made a calculated pivot, rerouting vehicles from Mexico to Canada through U.S. territory using bonded carriers. This clever detour allowed the company to dodge nearly $1 billion in losses. But this wasn't just damage control. It was part of something bigger. Analysts believe Canada is now seeing one of the biggest industrial investment waves in decades. Plants once idle in Ontario and Quebec are coming back to life. And at the heart of it all, Ford. One key move, the Oakville Assembly Complex. Originally set to become an all-electric vehicle plant under a $1.8 billion Canadian investment, the plan shifted. Instead, it'll now focus on gas-powered Super Duty trucks starting in 2026, a move likely aimed at hedging against uncertainty in the EV space and unpredictable U.S. policies. But for laid-off workers in Oakville, this shift means more than just strategy. It means hope. For the first time in 5 years, I have a reason to get up early again, one engineer shared. Meanwhile, over in Quebec, Ford and its Korean partners EcoBM and Scon are building one of North America's most advanced cathode material plants. With a $1.20 to $2 billion price tag, the plant will crank out 45,000 metric tons of battery material annually. Even more impressive is the government support. Over 644 million Canadian dollars from the feds and Quebec province combined. It's a bold signal. Canada doesn't want to follow the U.S. in clean tech. It wants to lead. In places like Boncourt, where smokestacks once ruled the skyline, EV batteries may soon take over. It's a striking transformation. But not everything's going electric. In Windsor, Ford is pouring 600 million Canadian dollars into revamping the historic engine plant. The result? Nearly 800 new jobs and 150 more tied to producing V8 engines for Oakville's Super Duty line. For older workers, this isn't just about employment. It's about preserving a legacy. All of these moves suggest something deeper than just avoiding tariffs. Ford and companies like it might be quietly reshaping North America's industrial map. And Canada is emerging as a surprising frontrunner. Not because it's cheaper, but because it's stable. While the U.S. juggles policy swings and trade fights, Canada offers consistency, smart localization under USMCA, and reliable government support. Roughly 80% of Ford's parts are now made within the region, shielding the company from more tariff trouble. Provincial and federal investment programs have helped turn Canada into a magnet for long-term industry growth. With strong rail lines, deep logistics networks, and a renewed vision, Canada may not just be bouncing back, it could be taking the lead. They thought the jobs would come back. But instead, they're watching them leave, north. In states like Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, once the beating heart of American manufacturing, plants are slowing down. Orders are drying up. Some assembly lines have even gone quiet. Why? Because companies are shifting production to Canada, where the future looks far more stable. Since the U.S. introduced sweeping tariffs in 2025, the cracks in the system have become hard to ignore. Tariffs meant to protect American industry have instead pushed companies like Ford to quietly reroute their supply chains. And Canada? It's seizing the moment. Canada is no longer just a secondary player. It's becoming a powerhouse, building advanced battery plants, electrification hubs, and high-performance engine factories. In Quebec, a new $1.2 billion cathode materials plant promises not just output, but over 300 skilled jobs. In Windsor, Ford is pumping in $600 million to upgrade its engine plant, backed by federal and provincial support. These aren't one-off moves. They're part of a bigger shift. Canada's political stability, investment incentives, and its USMCA compliance make it a magnet for industries seeking long-term solutions, not short-term fixes. Meanwhile, in the U.S., steel prices have skyrocketed. Factories can't source enough materials. Some have shut down altogether. Skilled workers, many over 45, are being laid off as contracts vanish and costs surge. In Indiana, one workshop lost 32% of its revenue in just 3 months. Their craftsmanship didn't change. The prices did. Veteran workers in cities like Erie, Youngstown, and Gary are asking the same painful question. Who is really being protected? One steel worker in Pittsburgh put it plainly. If my plant's still closing, who are these tariffs really helping? As jobs vanish in the U.S., Canada's industrial zones are thriving. Cranes are back. Engineers are returning. Cafes near plants are reopening night shifts. Trade schools are filling up again. There's a revival underway, but not where many expected it. Ford's workaround shows the scale of the shift. By using bond carriers, special transport routes through the U.S. without paying import duties, the company bypassed almost $1 billion in tariffs in 2025 alone. Vehicles and parts now travel through America, but don't stop here. They're headed north. And with them go the jobs. The truck routes, the warehouses, the port jobs. Roles that once sustained families in the Midwest are vanishing. This isn't just an economic shift. It's a wake-up call. While American policies try to wall off competition, companies are adapting and moving on. Canada, once overlooked, is becoming the place where the future of manufacturing is being built. So, the question is no longer why Canada. It's how long until others follow. This was just the beginning. Hit that subscribe button and buckle up. Digital Garage has so much more in store.